When I started doing this podcast a year ago, I knew it'd give me an opportunity to meet great people in our industry. Chris Proler of PH Group down in Texas is one of those guys. We got personal, we discussed scrap, and shared some great family business stories. Good times, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. All right, everybody. Another day, another Scrap Life podcast. I get the pleasure today of sitting down and another Zoom call thanks to COVID-19 BS that we're all dealing with. I would have liked to do this one at Isery or something like that, but as the world turns and this is where we're at, this is what we're dealing with. But we're not going to stop. Just it's a true scrap industry deal. We just play the cards we're dealt and we go. So I'm sitting here with Chris Proler from the Proler Group down in Houston, Texas, and a fourth generation scrap guy. And I couldn't be more excited, man, just to sit down and pick somebody that's got some longevity in the industry once again and see what's going on. So welcome, Chris. Thanks for taking the time out of your crazy schedule, man.
I appreciate it, Brett. And I'm excited. This is actually the first Zoom call I think I've ever been on in my life. So I think it took me about 47 minutes to figure out how to get on, but I appreciate it. And you're the first person I wake up to every morning, brother. I mean, you're either moving a truck or loading this, loading that. I commend you, man. You're a hard worker.
We try, man. I mean, we got a great team over here. We got a bunch of ass busters. I mean, these guys show up every day and gals and they just get after it. And so I think it's my job, just as you well know, is to just, let them know, hey, man, I recognize what you're doing. Like, it's not going sight unseen. I'm willing to put in the hours if you're willing to put in the hours and vice versa. So, that's what I like about it. I mean, this industry is kind of a little bit old school still, and the fact that we got, people out there, we're still operating big equipment. We're still, in the weather every day. And it's just got that element of old school blue collar to it that I just kind of have a fond appreciation of.
Yeah. My dad told me probably 25 years ago, he said, in this business or any other business, absentee ownership does not work. And at least for us and our team, and going back to what you mentioned, it's all about the team. It's all about the culture. It's about the guys that are out there, busting their ass, burning steel, picking up scrap, just really having them embrace what we're doing. And we are a family, and going the extra mile for them and making sure that they can take care of their kids and their kids can take care of their kids. So we really believe in legacy here. And my son, I've raised him. He's my stepson. He's going to be the fifth generation. So he's been with the company since its inception. Got out of a non-compete in 2016, so close to 4 years, and he loves the business. Unfortunately, I told him that if you get in this business, it's like going to prison without the possibility of parole. Yeah. So if you're in it, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, once it gets in your veins, it's tough, man. It's tough to escape. So
crazy.
Give me a little bit of background. So I know you're fourth generation. The Proler name, I've known that last name for a while, but I'm super curious. Just give me the history of your guys' family in the scrap industry.
Cool. So in the late 1800s, my great-grandfather, Ben Proler, he started with a wheelbarrow and a horse in Houston, and was collecting rag bones and scrap and, anything to feed his family. And, the business really started picking up after World War I. And the company became Proler International, well, in the mid 50s, my great uncle and my grandfather and his brothers, which was Izzy, who is my grandfather, his brothers Sam, Jackie, and Jaime, they all were basically responsible for inventing the first automobile shredder, which was known as the Prolerizer. So that transpired in the mid 50s, and in the late 60s, Proler International, they changed the name, and it was I believe the first New York Stock Exchange recycling company on the board. So, which was, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty deep history when you start thinking about the first automobile shredder, which now they're very plentiful. Not just here in the United States, but across the world. To think that your family has a big piece in creating that, which is a game changer for our industry, obviously. That you guys got to take a lot of pride in that over there.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable to think about how someone, in my family could go and engineer and draw, and the whole story, how it transpired, is really kind of cool. But we'll save that for another day over a cup of coffee or something. But I take those things really serious, man, and it took me a long time to tell people that or talk about it, because it just felt, first off, I had nothing to do with it. It had to do with my grandfather and his brothers and my great grandfather, who just busted their ass just to support their family. And it took me a minute or two just to be proud of that and say, you know what, that's something that's really cool. And still in Europe, I think they still call shred prolarized, which was, the commodity, and that's how they used to sell it, as polarized.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So from the shredder to having a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, so and that's in the 50s, correct?
The 59, I believe they invented the shredder. 68, the company went public. And kind of fast forward, and 19, my grandfather, who basically raised me, I was with him every weekend of the world. Izzy was just, I would have loved to have had him for another 20 or 30 years or forever. He was just an amazing man. And, he would take me to the scrapyard every weekend, but, I'm not like a guest that is going to tell you that I was in the yard working. I wasn't. I was just playing with the scale and walking around and doing whatever a 10, 9, 8-year-old kid does. But it was really neat. And he passed away in 86. And my father and godfather stayed on, and they sold the Houston division to a company which is Derishborg. It's a big company out of Europe, and my dad and godfather Ronnie started Proler Southwest in 1990, 92, 93, and I was off at. I was in school at the University of Washington at that time. And about 6 months after they started the company, my father out of nowhere called me, said, "Would you mind sending me your transcripts?" And I'm like, oh God, it's not a call you want to get. And
he's getting you, he's really back in. I love it.
I don't know what he was doing, but I was trying to figure out, how do I manipulate these? I've got more years than hours. It was a challenging time trying to figure out, how am I going to explain this to my pops? And I just basically sent him everything. And, within 48 hours, verbatim, he said, "Pack your shit. The party's over." So, so you know what I said? I packed up the car, drove home from, Seattle to Houston, which was an absolute nightmare in itself.
Yeah, that's a long
Uh,
drive.
Totally. It was ridiculous. I think I got to El Paso and I walked into a convenience store and said, how long is it to Houston? And they said, you've got another 12 hours. I think I called my dad and said, you're going to have to get me on a plane or something. I can't take it anymore. I thought I was home. I didn't realize it. So anyway, I came home and a week later, this is a fact, we're just starting, and my dad and godfather, they've handled a lot of these industrial accounts for a long, long time, and had some great contacts and a lot of business, went with my dad and Ronnie. And during this time, we were just, you know, doing, buying and selling and doing as much as we could. But every day it was really cool. My godfather would come in and ring a bell and we get a big account. And I wasn't in the office at that time. My dad had me burning scrap. I was burning some mandrel bundles. And I don't know if you know what mandrel bundles are, but it's tough to cut. So I'm out there with a guy that does this for a living, that burns 9 tons, 10 tons a day. He gives me the torch, and I don't think I cut a half a pound before my father. And my father used to, cruise around on his golf cart.
Uh-huh.
And he pulled over and just saw how pathetic I was with the torch in my hand. He said, "You're costing me money. Get off the torch." So he got me off the torch. And then, really we were doing a bunch of, demo jobs, like small demo jobs and cleanups. And I would go.
I got a question for you. Did your dad call you because he had just struck out on this new venture and he knew he needed help, like people he could trust? Or do you think that's, in the back of his mind, your mind, do you think he's like, man, I need help. I need boots on the ground. Like, or is he just frustrated with your
the lack of going to school and saying it's raining outside in Seattle every day?
Yeah.
Brett, that's a great question. I might have to ask him, but unfortunately, he's probably going to say you were just sucking in school and it was time to get your ass home.
Because dads have that intuition, right? You were just talking about your boy earlier, and you just have that intuition when you know your kid can do more. I have that with my oldest boy right now. I'm like, son, you are half-assing it, and I could call you out from a mile away. Like, you're not fooling me. You ain't fooling anybody.
We've been there before, right?
Yeah.
And my dad, one thing I committed to him several years back, I'm like, I will never lie to you again. I wouldn't say we had a challenging relationship. As you know, at least my experience, and that's all I can speak from. I'll never give you my opinion or what I think, but my experience was it was difficult working in a family business, and I did it for close to 18 years. And I spent a lot of time with dad, but looking back, I wish I would have just spent more time. He's the best operator, and whether I'm biased or not, I've never seen a guy turn their inventory, stay on top of their business like my father. He's phenomenal. But going back to intuition, I'll tell you a quick funny story, and I don't mean to get in the weeds. Sometimes people say, Proler, you need to land the plane. So I try and this is your show. I don't want to take over.
It's your show, man. This is like, we're talking about all shit that I love. So
okay,
we're talking about family business, father-son dynamics, scrap stories. Like, the reason we do this podcast is all those reasons. I have a dad. This was my boss from 2004 to 2000 16 for 12 years. And we didn't, there was months we didn't talk to each other, and we were operating the same business. My wife be like, "Have you talked to your dad yet?" And I'm like, "Fuck that guy. I can't deal with him right now." And she's like, "You guys," my mom's the mediator. So trust me, like when you talk about father dynamic, like son work environment, scrap, like you're not going to bore me with stories in the week.
Yeah, no, it was, and it was more for me wanting to be a bigger part of the company. And mind you, at this point, I'm 25, 28, 30 years old. And of course, he had a method to his madness, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to be involved in those meetings and understanding why he is, asking for another buck a ton when he's selling 80,000 tons a month, and thinking to myself, God, what a negotiator. I mean, it's hard for me to ask for 5 cents, let alone $1. I mean, and he says, look, son, the mill will get that buck back maybe in 2 months, and we might give him back $5, but this month we really need that $1. And, just some of those, little nuggets you get.
Yeah.
But what the story I was going to tell you, it's classic. At least it is in my world. I don't know if you remember those little Nextel two-way radios.
Oh yeah, we had them. Yep.
Yeah. So, it was my dumbass idea to go, and a buddy of mine was selling them. So I'm like, Michael, I want you to come pitch my pops on getting these two-ways. They'll be great. So Michael comes over, he sells them. We end up getting them and changing over. And I went into sales in 1997, and I'd been on the road probably 6, 8 months, and never once had my father ever called me to check in, or just because that wasn't his deal. I was answering to my godfather, and he just, as long as he saw business coming in and I was producing, he was fine. So the first day I decided to go, it was a day like today. It's 60, not a cloud in the sky. We don't get many of these in Houston. I decided to take a few hours off and go, play some golf. So, we're about to tee off. I've got my driver in my hand, and my phone goes, chee chee, come in, son. And I'm like, God, I mean, amazing timing. And he says to me, I said, yeah, go ahead, Dad. He goes, where are you? And I just couldn't, I just had to come clean. I said, I'm playing golf. He said, I figured, and that was cool. But going back to intuition, it was a beautiful day. He knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so haven't spoke to him in 8 months on the two-way radio. The first day I go play some golf, and he hits me on the phone, wants to know where I'm at. Just killed me.
So in our office, my dad and I had very similar struggles. I mean, at the time when I started, we were a 22-person company. That included our trucks and pipe and everything. And then as we kind of built out 04, 05, 06, the market started changing, started getting a little bit better. We didn't necessarily add a bunch of facilities, but we were growing. We were adding trucks, and we were adding, equipment and people.
How old were you at this time, Brett?
04, I was 22, 23 years old. So I had just graduated my undergraduate from college. So I always tell the story, I graduated on a Saturday. My dad showed up. Nobody in my family had ever even went to college, let alone got a college degree. It was a big deal in my family to even go to college, right? So I went to school. I got my my business admin degree and graduated on a Saturday. And I'm all excited, thinking I got a couple weeks to go hang out with my buddies and go party and whatever else. And my dad, he's excited. And I was kind of half-assed joking with him. Hey, when you want me to come start? He's like, Monday'd be fine. I brought the trailer, put all your shit in there. So I got like 1 day off.
So you knew you were going straight to the business when you were getting.
I knew from when I was 5 years old what I was going to do. My whole life,
really?
I've always known. There was never ever a question in my mind what I was gonna do when I got older. I always knew.
Wow, that's cool. I never even thought about the recycling business till I got the phone call to get your ass home. I mean, obviously I was around it, but
Yeah,
never really thought that I'd work with my dad.
yeah,
So
it's a cool experience. I mean, there not like I said, there wasn't the years where we would just, I mean, go ahead to toe. Because here I am, a younger guy. I've got a bunch of ideas how I think we can grow the business. He's just in operations mode, trying to keep. We had a trucking brokerage at that time, and trucks and scrap, and he's trying to keep all the plates spinning. And I wanted more of a bigger role in our business. And we used to have this big scrap brass eagle in his office, and we do our production meeting there every Monday morning. And it was just it came in as scrap. It had the wing welded back on, but it was just this, I don't know, it was pretty big size. And one time him and I were getting into it at the production meeting in front of everybody. And he said, he went over and he grabbed that
really,
brass eagle and he put it right in front of him. He goes, "I'm the fucking eagle in this room." And I was like, okay. I was like, all right.
I mean, you're a big dude though. What are you 6'4", 230?
No,
I mean,
I'm
you're a
probably
big guy.
6'1". I was like 6'1", 245. I played football in college, and I always,
Yeah,
I had a ton
but
of
it's still your pops.
exactly. And I always thought he could take me all the way through, like even my freshman year in college. I was nervous because he's just a tough guy. And when he did that, I
Dang.
kind of was like, all right. And then then the joke always became like, well, we know who the eagle is in the room, And so it was a funny. It was just a
Hey,
funny
Dad, can we do that without the whole company in the room? Just you and I. Now
uh,
you've got the whole company thinking. I have the same with and you know what's crazy, man? I am my father's son, meaning there's just times I take the good and the bad, but when I'm talking to my stepson and he wants to reinvent the wheel, and I love having those conversations, but don't come in here wanting to buy 8 trucks and doing the math and here are the projections. I'm like, you need drivers, you need insurance, the liability. It's just like my father used to say to me, before you come in my office, you better have all these questions answered. And before you come in with some dumbass question or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So
And when you
my
say you are your father's son, like there's a lot of truth to that, man. My dad and I have an amazing relationship right now. I mean, and we've had it for a long time, but as the years, as he got closer to wanting to retire and be done, our relationship only got better. And then now he's been retired since 2016. So, I mean, we have a great relationship. I bounce ideas off him all the time, but we had a grand opening for our trucking shop a couple of months ago, at the end of last year, and my dad was there. He had a cigar and just having a couple of drinks, having a good time, and a big grin on his face. And I looked at my wife who was there, and I said, and a couple of my buddies, and I said, if you ever want to know what I'm going to be like when I'm 62, I said, look over there. I said, the writing
absolutely.
is on the wall. Like I can't tell you. So,
But Brett, how, for me and some of my internal struggles, I and to this day, and I'm going to be 50, I still seek validation from my dad. I still seek approval. I still want him to be proud of me. I mean, it's cool that your dad is, was there any kind of competitive, did you feel competitive spirit between you guys, obviously without saying it, but just feeling that?
yes, when we were both working, yes, there's very much so. And it wasn't necessarily of whose idea is better per se, as much as when you've been doing it for so long, like your dad or my dad, that's all they know. I mean, my dad, he grew up in the scrap business, his whole life. That's all he knew. He didn't drive and truck and scrap. I mean, and it was a very old school way of doing it. And so we always had there was always that somewhat of a tension of like, what's the next step? But I'll give my dad like an immense amount of credit, because he watched how hard it was for him with his dad in the transitionary period. So in 1997, my dad wanted my grandpa to retire. My grandpa wanted to retire. But keep in mind, my grandpa never paid my dad any money. Like, fucking the minimum, whatever he could get away with minimum wage, like that's what he paid him, right? So my dad never had a savings
Unbelievable.
account. He never had any money.
Was it more of a control thing? Was it more of a control thing with your grandfather?
Yeah, I think there was some of that for sure. And I don't know, but my dad, he's pretty, he's very logical, and he can think through a lot of the process and kind of see the long term. And so he was dealing with Schnitzer Steel at that time, and he had formed some good relationships. And he basically was able to make a deal with Schnitzer where they bought 50% of our company, and that took that money and bought my grandfather out of the business. So then my mom and dad became 50% owners of the business with Schnitzer Steel, allowed my grandfather to retire. And that kind of is what got the wheels in motion to actually for them to grow the business a little bit and kind of get it on its feet and get going. So, there's always been
But
that.
you guys had a JV. Y'all have or had a JV with Schnitzer where they bought into the company, and it allowed
Right.
your father to take care of your grandfather, exit the business, and provide liquidity for growth.
100%. We bought our new Sierra Shear at that
And then
time. They gave us cash flow to buy some bins and roll offs and kind of get the train going. I mean, in the form of a loan. So and that was in 97. And then so they were a privately held company. They were not even publicly traded in 97. So they didn't become publicly traded, I think, until 99-ish, if I recall. And that definitely changed the dynamic. You go from being a public, maybe 2001, but right in that area, from being a privately held company to now becoming publicly traded. But my dad and my mom, who's very involved in the business, will tell you that was the best deal they ever made, because it taught them how to be more professional, right? It taught you how you weren't just a mom and a pop scrapyard over in Idaho. You had a real business, a real, from the accounting side to the, for the front end to the back end.
Real systems and processes, and it gives you scalability, and being that you're public gives you a little leverage when you're dealing with people, knowing that there's sustainability, right?
Exactly.
I mean, perception anyway.
100%. And, customers were more willing to listen to us because they knew we had the financial backing to pay the bill regardless of the market. I mean, there was a lot of those components that, that were really big in like the growth of our business. Even in 04, when, I came in full time, it was, we were still, we just had the 2 locations. We weren't a huge company or anything, but just, my ability to come in and bring a new twist to it, and my dad's willingness to let me do it, I think is the biggest thing, giving me the rope to make some mistakes and to do that.
Absolutely.
Was huge for our business. And when you go back to your son wanting to buy 5 trucks and do all that and talk about drivers, I used to tell my dad, I'm like, I want to put a yard here. I want to put a yard here. I want to put a yard here. And my dad would be like, who the fuck is going to work at all these places? Who's going to run it? Who are you going to staff? Who are you going to have do it? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to find people. Like, that's what I do. And he goes,
absolutely.
Yeah. He said, good luck.
Human capital is very, very scarce and scarce in our industry, right? I mean, it's hard to find people that want to get involved in our business. And I tell people all the time, it's the sexiest business I know. I mean, just it's tough to find great talent because most talented people own their own businesses, right? Yeah. So you guys went from 2 locations to 8 over how long?
We had our most growth. So we had in 2008 was when the market was just absolutely on fire, the ferrous side. And then in 09, end of 08 and 09, it crashed.
Illiquid.
What's
Couldn't
that?
sell I said it was illiquid.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Going from $800 scrap to not getting, from going through our costs, because we still had to pick up the scrap. We still had to process it, and we can't sell a pound.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it was just a crazy, crazy turn of events. And what happened is the real estate market over here got really hot going into that, and then it just plummeted. Well, because we had a trucking company and because we had planned ahead to a certain extent, we had basically liquidated all of our inventory going into the crash. So we were sitting on asphalt, right? I mean,
Nice.
we got, and we got lucky. There's a luck to it. There's this, it's a blend.
Absolutely.
All of our receivables were paid. So we kind of were sitting there, we ended up having to lay some people off at that time, which was the first time we've ever done it and the only time. But we were sitting there kind of calculating, well, what was our next move? And couple good commercial deals on property came up, and I was like, you know what, fuck it, we're putting a scrapyard in. Like we're gonna do it. Let's go for it. We're sitting in a good position financially. We were financially strong, not just cash flow wise, but balance sheet. We were always very conservative, and we still are to this day.
And did you, in your daily roles, we don't have titles at this company. I mean, probably like a lot like you, we're all firefighters, right?
Yep.
Do you manage the P&L and the balance sheet? I mean, from a micro to macro level, are you on top of it? How often do you look at that stuff?
I have two just killers in the accounting department. I have my mom, who knows what we do and how we do it inside and out.
That's awesome.
And then I have a guy that I hired about 2 years after I started. Smart, just good guy, and probably one of my best friends, if not my best friend, who him and I share an office. I mean, right next to each other. So I don't even need to keep an eye on the P&L because I got two sets of eyes that I trust. So
all you're looking at is the inventory.
Yeah, I manage it from a macro, like what do we do equipment wise, and then they tell me, yeah, you can afford that, or you might want to wait. And sometimes I'll just go with my gut on what I feel needs to happen and how much risk I'm willing to kind of take on. But those are the things that have really helped us build. And coming into that market, we were able to make some financial moves to get us positioned in some other markets that we've been wanting to get into for a while, but the real estate component was just such a big hurdle to overcome. And so from that 2009 to 2014, 15 is when we really pushed and we grew our pipe business and grew some other business that we had. So it just kind of enabled us to, it's kind of a snowball deal. It enabled us to kind of really grow. But really what it comes down to is like yourself is, man, when it's all you and you're the guy that's in charge of making sure everybody's going to eat tonight, there's a lot of pressure in that. But man, when it hits and when you feel like you're right, sometimes you just have a hard time as an entrepreneur or whatever, just not pushing your chips to the middle of the table and saying, if I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on me,
I've never, when I left Sims in 2009, so we were the board was working on an exit strategy, and my dad would kind of phase out as CEO and I would come in, and I just mentally knew that I wasn't there to take over that responsibility. And we, several years prior to that, anybody that has any type of, wanting to go do their own deal, especially when you're in the scrap business and you're handling 10, 15, 20,000 tons a month, it's really easy to do the math and say, okay, if I took 2,000 tons and I made $30 after cost, that's 60 a month. That's 720 a year. Golly, I need to go do my own deal.
Yeah.
Not knowing about anything else. So when I, I went to dad and early '09, I said, look, I want to give this a shot on my own. And I'll never forget that day, sitting with him and my godfather, and basically, my pop says, look, son, I'm never gonna, stop you from doing your own deal. And he said, just as long as your business doesn't conflict with mine, we're fine. So I ended up leaving, all on good terms, didn't go after any of my old business. My father is a big teddy bear, but he's a, how do I say this with a little bit of couth? He just has a killer instinct. Okay. And he's just, I mean, to this day, I'm intimidated by him. Right. But we have an incredible relationship. It got a little severed when I left, but so I started my own business and had some success, and whatever that means. And we grew way too fast. And in 2000, when the market's good, there's a lot of revenue, right? And people get enamored with revenue. And, I'd rather do 10 million a year and make 2 than do 50 and make 3. It's just, I don't care about that anymore. But I left the company and we grew very, very fast. I was way over my skis and from just being inexperienced, and had some really challenging times. And then 14, a private equity group came in and bought the assets of the company. I had a 2-year non-compete, and that was the toughest 2 years of my life, mainly because I felt like I left my dad down and myself down, and it was very, very challenging. And I basically had a breakdown, and I'd never been in that position where, I'm my biggest critic. I'm sure, like you. I mean, there's no one harder on me than me. And I always felt like I had to measure up to Izzy and my dad. And it took me a long time to get really comfortable being who I am, and accepting that, and being able to walk away from people and not give a shit what they think about me. Because regardless of what I do and how successful I am, or people like to see people fail. It's unfortunate. And that setback was a great opportunity for a comeback for me. And if you would have told me in 2014 that I would be where I am today, and I'm not talking about bullshit money, I'm talking about emotional and physically, and understanding what's truly important. And that is, at the end of the day, being a good father and being present for my 2 daughters that are the loves of my life. One, I have a 14-year-old, her name is Izzy, and a 12-year-old London, and understanding what it's all about after going through, you can't put a price tag on pain, right? When you feel shitty on the inside, it's feeling shitty. And I look back and I'm like, I never thought I was going to get through that. And I come out on the other side, and a lot of things have changed. I'm a work in progress, but knowing that I don't need to go and do things that I can't afford to do just for approval or whatever that is. Ego is alive and well with me. And I think that humility and grace and asking people, tell me your experience. How did you do this? How did you get from point A to B? How did you deal with your father?
Yeah.
Because, I, compartmentalize all that stuff, and it was eating me up. I don't mean to get vulnerable. I'm just sharing.
No. This is our industry, because we are blue collar and we are, supposed to be hardened, tough, all that jazz. I think about, going back and, saying, being your worst critic or your best critic, whatever it is. I think regardless of the industry or the business that you're in, your ability to sit there and analyze the decisions that you're making, whether you're analyzing them from a critical standpoint or saying, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, or why is this important to me? Why do I care what this guy says or that gal does or whatever? All those pieces of the puzzle, I think are super crucial. So that's what makes you a good operator, or makes you a good owner or makes you a good manager, whatever that is. Your ability to look inside yourself and evaluate what you're doing is the most important. I always say, fuck what everybody else is doing. Like, what's good for your business? What's good for your family? What's good for you? Like, I don't give a fuck who gets elected to be president. Like, I know who I voted for. It wasn't Biden, but you know what? At the end of the day, like, I can't control who gets elected. All I can control is the set of circumstances that are laid in front of me and try to make the best that I can out of it. And
what is best for you and your family.
Yeah.
Period.
Take care of the family, take care of, your work family, your home family, and then everything else, and have a long-term patient perspective. Everything else, I think, will eventually work its way out if you take that long-term approach and that compassionate people first approach. But you have to start with yourself. Like, you can be as nice as you want to 100 people, but if you're not kind to yourself and put yourself first, and give yourself that affirmation of like, hey, fuck what they say or what they do. It is what it is. That's not going to affect my day-to-day business. What's going to affect my day-to-day business is my attitude when I walk in the door. When I wake
Absolutely.
up, what's going to affect my business more? How do I communicate with my people? This is how I want it done. Well, if you're just a jerk and you're high on your own hog, then you're never going to be able to communicate that as well. So your ability to communicate from a positive, reaffirming standpoint, like, hey, the market's struggling, don't worry. Y'all are going to get paychecks. The market's great, don't worry. Y'all are going to get paychecks. We appreciate what you're doing. Like, let's go. And just that atmosphere, but it starts with you and it ends with you. Your ability
Absolutely.
to communicate that and feel good about what you're doing.
Sometimes I suffer from reality distortion disorder when I'm like, am I right? And I wouldn't say that our company is a meritocracy, but we're pretty close. I mean, we come together, we collaborate, we make decisions. And at the end of the day, hopefully, if we're batting, 500, you'll get in the Hall of Fame every day of the world. But our business, being that it's so, commoditized, it makes it difficult. But going back to what you were talking about and what we're discussing, it's all about attitude. I'll hire heart over head every day of the world. You can't teach attitude. Yeah. And trust me. And if you, have you read the book Good to Great?
Yep.
Great book.
Yep.
Learned a lot from that book. And I still struggle as a leader. I'm not a great communicator. I sometimes just expect people to read my mind. Well, that, I need to understand. I need to get more methodical and put myself in one of my teammates' shoes and explain what I need instead of them trying to figure out what I need. And it's just it's progress, not perfection.
It's a communication game, right? Like, it goes back to your ability to communicate, whether you're communicating with your wife or you're communicating with your non-ferrous manager, whatever that is. Like, it's a communication game and it's a communication world. The better you can communicate, the better you are off in general, and I think that's, like, one of the reasons why I do this podcast is, man, I'd like to communicate. I want to know, because I know I don't know everything. And I want to hear from guys like yourself who have walked similar shoes. I want to hear from guys that have walked very different shoes than me, and just try and get all these ideas and all this input, and then just try and sort it out the best I can and try and do the best what I can with it. So it's a communication business, and it's our business, our industry is very relationship driven, right? So your relationship,
It's everything. It's everything. Whether you're dealing with the mills or you're dealing with, manufacturers, you're, handling their daily scrap. It in this generation, it's, the texting and emailing. I kind of dig texting. I hate talking on the phone, just because I'm a natural introvert. So, most of my day is consumed with, figuring out what our next move is, or how are we going to sell this, and should we buy this? Can we afford that? And we're kind of a growth company. I tell people we're a 120-year-old startup company, and it is all about communication and just asking and hey, can you help me this month, whether it's with an industrial account or a mill. I need some help, and I couldn't do that 7 years ago just because of my own insecurities and lack of experience. So
and it just falls back on establishing those relationships and making and getting those relationships where you have the ability to be, whether it's, you want to use the word vulnerable or where you want to use it, but your ability to say, like, I don't ask unless I need it, or feel free to ask me if you need something, whatever that is, like that symbiotic, hey, we're all in this together type of deal. And I think establishing those, and those take time. And that's why I tell people all the time, people like, oh, would you be worried about if somebody came in and put a scrapyard in here or there to compete with you? And I said, here's the deal. I said, you can buy all the best equipment. Go fucking buy brand new stuff. Buy the best facility. Build it. I mean, build the Taj Mahal.
Go build a 30-year relationship. See how long that takes.
Build the Taj Mahal scrapyards, and then beat me at my game, which is relationships, customer service. My word is everything. I mean, you beat us at that, then you deserve the business.
Absolutely.
You're not going to beat me on new shit. I mean, good luck.
I don't worry with, and it's probably me. I don't worry about what my competitor's doing. I can only focus on what we're doing. I can't help if they're coming in and they're $40 over the market at one of our customers. That doesn't mean that we're going to change our whole formula. We just need to adjust and express to our customer why staying with Proler is the right move and what we've done over the longevity of our relationship, not some new company that comes in and they're $50-$60 a ton FOB the box, because they can't be $50 a ton over the. They can if they're doing things that we just don't participate in, but it's those relationships that our customers now, for the most part, understand that those numbers, they don't make sense. They might for a month, but they don't do in the long run.
Yeah.
See, I get all passionate talking about it. I get hyped up,
No,
you got me at a good time.
No, I'm curious. You sent me a couple pictures the other day. You texted me a couple pictures, couple videos. Is that something you want to enlighten everybody on? Sure. Kind of what you guys got going on over there?
Yeah, man. It's an emotional deal, but we acquired a shredder 3 years ago, and we were looking at East Texas, doing demographics and understanding where would be the best place strategically for the shredder. So we ended up a gentleman that basically runs a company, was friendly with he was with Commercial Metals for 9-10 years, and he was friendly with this guy that owned this business, and and Vidor, which is 15 miles from Beaumont. Let's just say it's an hour and 45 minutes from Houston to Vidor east. So we approached them, we acquired the assets of his company, and we had the shredder. We finally, after 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, turned it on the 28th of January. And it was emotional, man. I was thinking, going back to things that I wouldn't talk about years ago because of my own insecurities. I'm like, you know what? I'm effing proud, man. Another Proler is operating an automobile shredder, and it felt really, really good. And so right now we're basically, you know, doing some trial loads, and we think, you know, that we haven't finished the downstream. We're working on it. But I got to tell you, Brett, I mean, just sleepless nights, and, you know, the budget got a little out of control, and, you know, it's crazy operating a shredder. And just because, you know, my grandfather and his brothers, you know, invented it, I'm learning new stuff every day, man. I don't have a clue about shredders. But so that's been the positive for me, of just understanding how the machine works and how to get the biggest bang for your buck, and, you know, basically making the cake like they do at mills and finding the right chemistry. So yeah, our shredder was turned on, like I said, on the 28th, and we really feel really, really good about it. And I'm truly grateful to the team that put it in and just kicked ass doing it. Man, it was crazy. I wish it was on, you know, in December, and we could have got a nice little hit for a couple months. But, you know, if you buy it right,
you'll get it. You know, I get the feeling from talking to you that you're in it for the long haul. So you may not get it in February, but I think that this year, and this is just my opinion, I've stated it out there. I think this year is setting up to be a pretty good year. I think the steel mills are going to try and take some gas out of it this month, just because they think they can, and if they get away with it, more power to them. I'd do the same thing if I was them. But
yeah, that's for a whole nother call, right?
Yeah, that's a whole different. Yeah, that's a whole. Yeah, that's a whole different deal. But I think, just going back, I think that you're in a good spot as far as, you know, that thing is it's gonna do what it does. It's gonna pay the bills, and you can count this. You know, your great grandfather is looking down and saying, "Yep, like another Proler's running a shredder." And whether you believe in, believe in the God and all the bullshit, whatever that is, but you can at least know that there's a lot of people that are kind of part of that deal on your team.
Absolutely, man. I really believe
that's cool, man.
I really believe that day, and I'm a spiritual guy, right? I believe in something bigger than me, whether it's my kids or this beautiful day. That my dad, you know, was, you know, I couldn't wait to send him the video, and thinking about my grandfather. And at the end of the day, it took me a long time to understand that's what it's about, right? That's what it's about. It's about the legacy, and you know, this business requires you to bust your ass to be successful, period. And
you have to embrace that
every day. Absolutely.
You embrace that. It's just a game changer. I tell, you know, my wife's a school teacher, right? I mean, school teachers in Idaho, they don't get paid a crazy amount of money, but she does it because she loves it. And she asked me, well, do you want, you know, she wanted to stay home after our second boy, you know, for a year, because our first boy she went right back to work within a couple of months. And the second one, she's like, I want to stay home for a year. And I said, that's fine. I said, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter to me. You just make yourself happy, because I don't want to come home to, you know, someone that's unhappy.
Just bitter.
Yeah.
You know,
so
you come home, here's a kid. You're like, I've been working for 15 hours.
No, exactly.
That's not healthy for a relationship.
No, and so she took a year off, and she couldn't wait to get back to work, right? And she goes to work every day. I go to work every day, and but when we both, and the cool thing is I watch my mom and dad go to work together, every day for 30 years. They work most of those years they worked in the same office and come home and they talked about work and they talked to us. So I've been involved in the scrap business since from a very, very, very young age, whether it's at home or there. And I love the fact, and I have a tremendous amount of appreciation for my parents because they taught me a lot just by listening to those conversations. You know, I feel like I was already ahead when it was my turn. Um, but that I can come home and my wife can tell me about school and third graders, and we don't hardly talk about scrap that often because that's not a big interest to her, and I'm okay with that. And but just that deal of you doing something you love, you don't care about the money as much anymore. Like it's not as big of a deal. I care about the money because I want to keep the lights on and I want to grow, not because I want to know what shit I can buy. I don't.
Yeah.
When you're happy doing what you're doing, you don't need a bunch of extra shit.
Well, that stuff comes, whatever that, stuff is, whether it's, go put on a pair of Johnson Murphys and then go put on a pair of Cole Haans. The Cole Haans feel better, right? I mean, go fly first class and then go sit in the back. It feels better to it's just, you have more room, you can hang out, but other than that, I like nice shit too. I mean, unfortunately, but not for anybody else, but for me. I'm not saying, hey, look at me. That's the last thing I want to do. But, talking about your wife and your parents, I don't have enough. You don't have enough time. As many times as my father and I've been told, no business at the dinner table tonight. We are not discussing business. But it's our commonality, right? It's what we do. I mean, it's what we talk about. And, whether it's, my stepmom or, my sister or my kids, we're not talking about business tonight, but
good luck,
thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's what's clothing us right now. It's giving us the ability to drive from our house to dad's house, understand that.
There's an element. The other day, my son, I always ask him, we sit down and eat dinner, and I said, how was your day today? I asked both of them. I said, how was your day? What happened today? How was school? And it depends on their mood. Sometimes be like, good. I'll be like, that's it? Fucking good? Like, what? Like, what'd you do? Like, what happened? Because like, what was so good about it? Like, why was it so good? And the other day, finally, and they're like, well, how was your day today, Dad? And I said, good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I tell my kids all the time, can y'all ever just call me without asking for something? Just call me and say, it's so crazy these days. I'll be in a meeting or working, and my kids will FaceTime me 87 times until I pick it up. I'm like, it's such a different generation now with the phones and kids and I've taken my girls to several yards, and they don't, I'm like, this is, hopefully y'all are going to want to be a part of this one day. They're like, we don't want to be involved with that, Dad.
That was my next question for you because people ask me all the time. So I love flipping the question to other people is, do you welcome it? Do you look forward to it? And do you think that your daughters, obviously your son is involved, do you think that your other two kids will want to be involved in the business?
I'll say this. Today's short answer is absolutely not. Mm-hmm. I think that and that's something that I would never even, push on them or if they are, that would be awesome. I want them to do whatever they want to do, whatever makes them happy. And, right now, London wants to be a lawyer, and I think Izzy wants to be an entertainer, but who didn't want to be an entertainer at that age? But they have I'm like, come on, let's go to the yard. No, daddy. And it's just, it's conversations that aren't held that much because they've been around where they understand and they see my dad and I talk about business, and sometimes it gets heated and they misconstrue us having heated conversations. It's just passion, right? And you know, like I used to tell my dad, the louder you talk, the less I understand you. So, you know, we don't need to yell. And then next thing you know, I'm yelling at my stepson, and not yelling because I'm pissed. I'm just passionate. Why can't you see this?
Yeah.
So they don't really, they have no desire to be part of it, and they don't even want to discuss it. Even when I show them videos, I'm all excited about, here's a life-changing moment in our life. Girls are like, that's great, Daddy. Can you order us, you know, some sushi or something?
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, I got boys, and it's the same way. So
how old are your boys?
I got 11 and 7. So,
unbelievable.
So it's, yeah, I mean, and my you know, my 11-year-old, I'm about to start bringing him down here on Saturdays and letting him earn some money. But
let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, I mean, it's gonna be one of those, like, I'm telling you, not asking you type of programs. But at least for a while, I'm just gonna at least kind of get him motivated. But
absolutely,
I want the same thing for my kids. I just want to be happy. I want them to go find something they're passionate about, because what I don't want them is to be like feeling like I'm putting pressure on them to come do something that I love, right? Just because I love it doesn't mean you will, and I'm okay with that.
I think it's so crazy that you knew at such a young age that this is what you were going to do. I mean, that's really, really cool, man. I look back sometime at my childhood and I'm like, I don't even remember what I thought I was going to do. Life is just, it goes by really so fast.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm going to be 50. I've been in this business 28 years. And it's the beautiful thing, like I said earlier, is like, even with the shredder, there's so much knowledge to be learned. I mean, I'm learning so much, and I don't know if this is fortunate or unfortunate. Sometimes I think it's unfortunate on the non-fair side of the business. That part of the business is so difficult for me. There's so many different commodities and so many different this and that. If it doesn't stick to a magnet, I have no clue what it is. Just being totally honest.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. Like, I mean, when you're honest with yourself and you say, okay, like, this is the gaps I need to fill. I heard somebody say it one time, and I really, you know, I really took it to heart. Was, don't people say, oh, you need to spend some time, you know, filling in these gaps of your knowledge, right? And there is an argument for some of it, but there's also a point where you can go acquire that knowledge with the right people, with the right hustle, to where you play on your strengths, spend your effort on your strengths, and then fill the gaps. But if you're over there wasting the time where you can be spending it on the stuff that you really know and that you really understand and that you're really fucking good at, but you're over here spending time on the stuff that it doesn't
learning 60, 61 and 60, 63. Yeah. That's not going to pay the bills today. I want to try to make money every day. That's a big goal of mine. Not often does it work, but we try.
Every once in a while, yeah, it works out.
Every once in a while.
So spend your time and effort, people, on the shit that you're good at and that you like, and you'll be all right.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I was to speak to a group of more than 2 people and mentor them, and I love mentoring people, we all have our weaknesses. We're all flawed as humans. We all have issues. Not just because the outside of the house looks beautiful doesn't mean the inside is so perfect. And I tell people all the time, look, you know, I would have done well in college, and you know, when I text, I don't know if it's TOOO, TOO, just like, you know, I pay attention, but not that close. But I'm like, just execute on you and leverage your strengths. You don't have to know it all. That's why people do different things.
Yep.
and it's true. And I spend a lot of time in the weeds, which I need to really start saying, guys, I can't do that. It's funny. The day before Christmas Eve, I called two guys that are on the team, and I'm like, guys, I need help. I can't call the freight company. I can't call the trucking company. I can't set it. Just, sometimes, and that's my fault, is being a bad communicator. But sometimes I just have to, just say, I need help, guys. I need help. And what's amazing about my team is they all are just, they're there. It's like I said, it's more of a family. We have intimate conversations like we're having that are meaningful. I want to know about you and how, tell me about your life and the history of your life. And, because it's interesting, right? I
And
mean,
that's how relationships. That's the basis of relationships. That's the basis of our industry. That's the basis. I mean, I interviewed a Nathan Fruchter, and he called the scrap as a people commodity, because it's still something you touch, you feel, and it's a people commodity. And I just always love that when way he said it, and that's what it is.
so true. I look at these guys that are trading and making big money, and I always have to, excuse me, tell myself, we have a tangible asset, right? I mean, it's I'm like, sometimes I'd like to throw on a suit and go make 50, 100 a day or whatever. But that's what I love about this business. It's tangible. You can watch a big piece turn into a little piece and go in a barge and then go to the mill and watch it melt and make hot roll. I think there's something to be said for that.
There is, man. There is. Well, any parting shots you want to leave everybody with? Like I said, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule. Anything you want to leave everybody with?
Well, my time is cheap, Brett. That's most important. Yours isn't. I wanted to thank you for having me on, and you're, like I said, I wake up to you every morning. You give me motivation, and I'm honored that I'm a part of this. And if there's anything that we can do when you're down south, let me know, because I will take you up on coming to Boise, and we'll go to Sun Valley and do some spring skiing, and not talk about PNS and cut and why the mills took it down 80 when they should have been sideways. And but
yeah. Well, the feeling is mutual, man. Like I said, I love these interviews just because it gives me the opportunity to pick someone's brain and just kind of understand them as a human and why they're involved in this industry that I like so much. And thank you for taking the time. And
you got it.
I wish you, man, nothing but success. And I'll be waiting for the phone call to get your ass up to Idaho, or when I come down there.
Absolutely, my friend. Have a great day, and keep me posted.
I will. Thank you, Chris.
All right, man.
Take
Thank
care,
you,
man.
buddy. You got it.
Bye.